You know, this time I thought it was going to be different. This time I saw the potential characters and I thought, surely they'll give me someone I asked for. They have to at this point. Johnny, Jam, Slayer, all of you have been teased in different ways and somehow none of you are here. If it wasn't for my beloved Baiken, there would be no one in the DLC for me. Ignore Sin. What am I supposed to do, man? Is there no hope in the world? Wait, what's this? A teaser at the end of the Bedman trailer. Maybe one of my prayers shall be answered. You have got to be fucking kidding me! Okay, so literally none of the characters I wanted to get into the season pass got in, and I personally think that this is bullshit. As the best Guilty Gear Strive YouTuber on the platform, I deserve... As the best Guilty Gear Strive YouTuber on the platform, I deserve some sort of compensation for all my work. I demand that my characters get added to the game, Arxis. How dare you add Asuka? How dare you? This character 100% makes sense to be added to the game, and I'm honestly amazed that it's taken Arxis nearly 23 fucking years to add this character. Asuka has been in the series in some way, shape, or form since Guilty Gear X that released in July of 2000. He is an integral part of the lore. So integral the story literally wouldn't happen without him. Look, here's a recreation of what would have happened if Asuka wasn't around. I love you, Arya.
I'm a guy. Thank you, whoever.
So yeah, Asuka's pretty fucking important to the lore of all these games. He made the gears, for fuck's sake. He's pretty important for everything that happens. I am genuinely happy that we are finally getting a character who, for the longest time, we only knew as that man into a game in a playable state. For longtime fans, this is a pretty big deal. And if they do the character justice, he could be one of the best and coolest characters in the game. Keyword being if. So... let's talk about that, man. Listen, I've made it pretty well known when I think about the majority of Strive DLC at this point. I've made, like, what, 5 videos on DLC characters at this point? And the only reason I skipped the middle 3 was because I was either busy when they released, I literally didn't play Bridget for, like, 3 days because I was traveling from America when she released, or I literally had nothing to say about them because they were too complicated to me or they bored the fuck out of me. There have only been 2 DLC characters that I actually praised out of the 8 released, and Sin was more of a he's better than I expected rather than the love letter that I gave to Baiken. But with Asuka, we have a clean slate, a completely blank canvas to do whatever we want with. So let's see what we're working with. Well, he's got a robe, and you know, sometimes he has cat ears. He's got the Drakengard thing going on with his right eye, and he's got a book. Yeah, this isn't shaping up to be very good, is it? Listen, I'm no games designer. I took games programming. So if you want a more in-depth way of how Asuka might play, with examples taken from his lore and previous games, then Radchad actually made a very similar video to this one about 2 months ago, before we even knew that Asuka was coming out. So you could go watch that video for a more realistic look on what Arxis might actually do with the character. Well, I mean, you know, after you watch this one, of course, you should watch this video first and then go watch Radchad, because I need the retention time. A lot of Asuka's design just kind of screams, I am a wizard! So we could probably expect him to not be directly fighting you and instead using some sort of magic in order to attack his foes. Now, this isn't always the case. Characters like Happy Chaos and Eno are very powerful mages, yet they still have somewhat of a more conventional means of attacking, like Eno smacking you with a $2,000 guitar, and Happy Chaos using this magical device known as a revolver that shoots a magical thing known as 9mm rounds. But Asuka is most likely to play like an actual mage because, well, what else is he gonna hit you with? His fucking book? So how do we make a mage that is actually cool and fun to play against? Because I'm not sure if you've noticed, but most wizards in fighting games are kind of boring. Ah, yes, I summon my massive fucking stay away from me meteor and flatten you into a fine paste. Ah, yes, I use my super fun giant fucking laser beam to incinerate you off the face of the earth. Behold, my most powerful magical weapon. Gun. So how do we spice it up? How do we avoid falling into the same Zona trap that a lot of mage characters find themselves in? Well, magic doesn't just have to be keep away. Despite the most common image of a mage being an old man with a big beard and a stick, I think there can be some ways that through gameplay, we can express the versatility of magic. That man is the creator of the gears and a literal master of magic, so he should use it in unique and interesting ways to mess with the opponents. And the way that I say that we do that is by making Asuka a zoner, rushdown stance character. Now, Guilty Gear has been somewhat lacking in stance characters for a while now. In Strive, the only real stance character we have is Leo, who's able to go into his back turn stance in certain conditions. However, when Leo gets into his stance, it doesn't feel like he's a drastically different character. He kind of still just feels like Leo. He still remains an aggressive rushdown character, he just trades the ability to block for more consistent and powerful mix-ups. This is kind of a common trend in the previous Guilty Gear games. Characters that had stances don't fundamentally change how they play, they simply become a more empowered version of their character. Now, I'm not going to pretend I know a lot about Plus R, but I have fought enough Abba to know that even though she does have a stance, her Moha and Son Goku stances still feel more like win conditions than things that drastically change her character. She kind of just goes from being a bad version of herself to a good version of herself. The closest we could probably get to a stance character is something like Zappa, but yeah, I don't really know shit about that guy. So let's say that Guilty Gear hasn't had a multi-archetype stance character for a while, just to be safe. So with that, let's go through what he can do in each stance. The first stance is what we're going to be calling the build-up stance. The build-up stance is a stance that is mostly focused on zoning and keeping players away, while allowing him to build up his unique bar, known as the energy bar. When the match starts, Asuka defaults to his build-up stance. While in build-up stance, all of his normals are slow, with his fastest button being a 5-frame 5p. He also has access to 4 special moves in this stance. His first special move is a very standard laser beam that goes the full way across the screen at a fast pace. If the laser connects in any way, he's able to do a follow-up that knocks opponents back, but leaves him in a disadvantageous space on block. He can also substitute the follow-up attack with one of his other special moves as well. He can also angle the beam upwards if he wants to catch jumping opponents. Think something like Batista's laser from Under Night or Alco's lasers from Melty Blood, but he's able to force a follow. He also has a teleport that allows him to move to 3 different positions on the screen, backwards from his current position to the edge of the screen, right in front of his opponent, and right behind his opponent. This special has pretty long recovery on it, so he can be punished if he's called out, or he does not cover the teleport. Imagine the teleport is something like Dalsims from Street Fighter. His first special has him summon an unblockable projectile strike that whiffs on crouching opponents directly above the opponent's head. Depending on the range, he may be able to convert with a Roman cancel, however, it's much more of a knowledge check to keep the opponent on their toes. Think like S's flip attack from Blaze, but he's not able to follow up directly off of it. Finally, his final special move is a full-screen telegraphed command grab that you need to jump in order to get away from. Think Axel's command grab, but instead of a stickle digging through the earth, it's more like a magical hand reaching out the ground and yanking your ass into the Shadow Realm or something like that. Whenever the opponent blocks an attack or Asuka gets a hit in the build-up stance, he gains energy that he puts into his energy bar. Once the energy bar is at 100%, he is forced into his release stance. The transformation causes the game to temporarily stop for about a second, however, Asuka can immediately act after the game resumes. Think of it like Yang entering low HP from BB Tag, or Jamie getting max drink level in Street Fighter 6. If you need something a bit more closer to home though, think Nago's pop, but he doesn't have to recover and he isn't vulnerable from it. His second stance is known as his release stance. While in release stance, Asuka becomes much faster in both his movement and the frame data of his buttons, with his fastest button still being his 5-3, but it now comes out in about 3 frames. Every one of his special moves has also now changed with how it functions. His projectiles no longer go full screen, in fact they're now very short, being replaced with a lingering projectile that can hit the opponent multiple times. His up projectile is actually replaced with a multi-hitting projectile that combos into itself by hitting the opponent from multiple angles. So the ground one is kind of similar to Milia's disc, and the air one is similar to New 13's drive moves, however the attack is automatic. His teleports are also just much faster now, being way less telegraphed and also allowing him to recover nearly instantly after the teleport is complete. This allows him to get really good easy left-right mix-ups by teleporting behind or in front of his opponent, as well as covering options like DPs by quickly teleporting away. His standing unblockable now causes a floor bounce effect, meaning he's able to combo off of the attack much easier, as well as leading to a lot of reset opportunities. The command grab now does less damage, however the opponent is held in place and takes multiple hits of damage. While the opponent is being held, Asuka is able to move around freely and position himself. Depending on the situation, the command grab can also now be comboed into. He also gains access to a pretty standard DP. The energy meter now depletes over time, and using special moves causes the energy meter to deplete much faster. Asuka is able to freely switch between the stances that he wants to use by doing a simple down-down input. However, there is a delay on when he can act again. If Asuka drops to 0 energy while in release stance, he is briefly stunned and unable to defend himself. Think Sin's Calories in Exile or Soul's old Dragon Install cooldown. For his 2 supers, his first is an install super that causes his energy bar to passively increase while in build-up mode and to not decrease passively while in release mode. A lot of characters with gauges in Strive have something similar to this, so it makes sense to also give it to Asuka. His second super has him send out a barrage of attacks that fill out the screen. Asuka is able to charge the super in order to do more attacks when the attack is released. If Asuka uses the super in build-up stance and fully charges the attack, he ends it with a super giant laser beam that sends the opponent flying full screen. If Asuka uses the super in release stance and fully charges the attack, he ends the super with him teleporting to the opponent, imbuing them with magic and causing them to explode, dealing much more damage than the build-up version, but leaving him in a pretty disadvantageous state. And with that, that's how I think Asuka should play. Granted, this isn't the most fleshed out toolkit in the world, and I have no idea if this would be absolutely terrible to play, or if it would be the best character in the game and that kit is overloaded, but I think it sounds cool. Do I expect this to be the actual version of Asuka we get? Fuck no, absolutely not. What I'm expecting is a dedicated zoner with a weird resource mechanic that makes his zoning better, so he can zone more with his giant laser beams. I just wanted to do this video though because I wanted to try and prove to myself that just because a character looks like they're going to be boring in my opinion, doesn't mean that they can't have cool things in their kit. Trying to figure out how a character would play is honestly kind of fun, and I might do this more for other characters in the future. Well, if I can think of any other characters that might be added to the game that aren't already playable in previous versions. Like, who isn't playable? We got the Jellyfish Pirates. They could add, like, April. We got Vernon. We got the Secretary Lady. There's, like, Gabriel, I guess. Yeah, I can't really think of anyone else. Let me know if you can think of any other characters that should be added to Strive, if you want me to try and make a moveset for them. Thanks for watching, make sure to subscribe, make sure to go check out Red Chad's video for a different perspective on this, and I will see you next time. As always, a very special thanks to 64MHz, Almost Nap Time, Bantushitos, Brudikai, Cervantes de Leon, Daniel Wiedericht, Dragonprox, Games.png, I Am Naruto, Jacko Reeves, Lady Dantalon, Melodically Me, Monact Enhoa, Ray W, Super, Forcon, Tom Tanks, and Zandatsu for being Tier 2 patron supporters.